YB stays on your neck.
It's on my neck.
Yo, my dons, make sure you hit that like button, comment, subscribe, and obviously hit the bell for notifications. So Anthony, a la cash cow, posted a training video to his Instagram. Now, some of you man who have seen the Instagram video will notice that this particular video you've just seen at the start of YB's video, this video is different. This right here is a YB exclusive. No one's got this video. Exclusive. You won't find this on none of AJ's Instagram. You won't find this on none of AJ's Twitter. Exclusive. Yeah? You have to come to, if you want the exclusive on AJ, you come to the YB. Fact. Anyway, the reason I'm going to react to the public one he put on Instagram another day, I'm going to do this one today because everyone's kind of rinsed that one for now. I'll do that in a few days. Anyway, the other reason I thought it's quite good for me to do this one now and the other one another day is because I added it all up. It's about 3 or 4 minutes of video, so it's too much to analyse in one video. But anyway, let me put a disclaimer on what I'm about to say as well. We have to bear in mind that we don't know, this is only a minute, 2, 3, 4 minute clip of his training session. We know for a fact, well, I'd hope so, we can assume that he's at least training for 60, 90, even maybe 120 minutes, or more than that, who knows. So we have to bear that in mind. I'm only going to go on what I can observe. Let's assume this was all he did. That's the assumption I'm going to make. Very naive and stupid, but that's all we can do. Let's not get twisted now. There's been many fighters in the past who will turn their camera on, literally do a few, look good on the pads, and that'll be it. Get in the ring, no good. Anyway, let's take it from the top. So we see AJ switching stance, pivoting, good combinations, and this is the stuff I'd like to start seeing in Rob McCracken's pad sessions. But then again, having said that, when you got to be careful when you do shadow boxing, and this is why I'm not sure how technical AJ's taking it. In as much as I'd like to see AJ with a heart rate monitor on, because when you talk about world-class conditioning and world-class cardiovascular system, it's all about heart rate. Yeah, it's no good being in training and shadow boxing and your heart rate's at 120 or 140. You're not pushing. You have to push your body into adaptations. You have to force your body to adapt. Yeah, that's how you condition your muscle. That's how you condition your cardiovascular system. Now, doing a whole load of training at 120, 140 beats per minute, that's going to develop your aerobic base. That means you'll be able to go for slow for a long period of time. In boxing, that's no good. In boxing, you're never going to be going for a long period of time slow. You need to be really training short explosive bursts, which gets your heart rate up. In fact, if not short explosive bursts, you need to be training your heart rate at high intensity, i.e. above 180 for extended periods of time. Yeah? And from what I've seen in this little clip, I haven't seen him checking his heart rate monitor. I'm not sure he's got one on. And this is something that, even if AJ's not going to manage it, he's got a team. There should be one of his trainers next to him. He can put the heart rate monitor on, and his team have the watch and tell him, AJ, you're dropping 160, get it back up, throw more punches, move your feet faster. And what I've noticed in my shadow boxing, you have to bear in mind, and one of the links I've made between, I can never understand why am I always tired in sparring, but when I'm doing my own stuff on the bag or whatever, I feel like I can go all day. The difference is, when you're sparring, you'll notice how quick you move your feet is a different level. When you're reacting to something coming at you, as an example, if someone throws a bat at you, or if you see a moving car coming towards you, your reactions, they're much more explosive. Whereas when I'm shadow boxing, I'll notice my feet, you're not reacting to something. Does that make sense? You haven't got that impetus to move. You just kind of plod along and move your feet or whatever. You've really got to think about everything's got to be real explosive, as quick as you can. When you're pivoting, as quick as you can. Pivot and step into a 1-2 or whatever. It's all got to be explosive. Now, to AJ's credit, the little bits we see here, it's pretty explosive, but is he really pushing it? Is he moving his hands as quick and as powerfully as possible? And also, on that note, the other thing I've noticed with shadow boxing, because in boxing and shadow boxing, you'll notice that, well, it's obvious, the main output comes from your arms. Now, your arms aren't big muscles, your legs are much bigger, and that's why a lot of boxers, they do a lot of conditioning on their legs. You'll see AJ cycling, you'll see people running, but in reality, that's no good. It's good, it helps condition your legs to some extent, but your arms are what doing the work. Your arms are what score points. So it's no good your legs being really fit. That's good to an extent, but you need to be conditioning what you're actually going to be doing, sport specific, fact. It's no good being it doesn't translate. Being able to run a marathon don't make a scrap of difference when you get in the ring. And some of the best boxers never did any road work. And that just goes to show that what you need to be doing is, within a boxing environment, finding ways to get your heart rate up. That's the bottom line. Within a boxing environment. That's what I believe. That's my philosophy. If it's not boxing, it doesn't really matter. Because otherwise, Mo Farah, a 10k runner, would make a great boxer. It don't work like that. You're using your muscles in completely different ways. Think about the movement. When you're running, think about the movement that is compared to boxing. In boxing, your feet are always moving together. If you step back, both feet step back. You're in a fixed stance. Running's completely different. Running, your feet are moving in opposite directions. One's going down, one's going up. Completely different. No good. Cycling, nothing like boxing. You need to practice, and the other thing you'll notice, a lot of fighters, when they get tired, their stance falls apart. And that's because they don't spend enough time in their stance and putting it under pressure. What people should be doing really is, in your stance, working on explosive step-ins. So, as an example, you can do laps. Instead of running laps, you can do laps of movement within your stance, i.e. you can... Once you're in, so set your boxing stance, and you're going to say to yourself, alright, I'm going to take 4 explosive steps forward, then 4 explosive steps back. Does that make sense? Do that 100 times, you've covered a lot of ground, and you get your heart rate up, but you're in a boxing stance. That's what you're going to be doing. You're conditioning exactly the same muscles and movements which you're going to use in the ring. Not running, not cycling. In your stance, step, 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 back, back, back. And you try it yourselves, in fact. Go outside in your garden or whatever, set your boxing stance, take 4 explosive steps forward, and then follow straight away by just go back and forth, up and down in a 10-meter spot. And in fact, you can even mix it up, and what I do is 10 meters one way, pivot, and go back the other way. So you can actually once you get to each end, you pivot and come back the same way, and you can work back and forth. You can work going back all the time or going forward and pivoting on each end. Now that, for me, I've never seen no boxer really doing that. Lomachenko does it to an extent, but that's what I'd be doing. Getting your heart rate up in that environment, because it's as simple as that. The research, from what I understand, is there's been little proof that, or there is proof that your body adapts to very specific movements, which makes sense. If you're conditioned for cycling or running, it doesn't translate. And as an example, runners, throw a runner in a swimming pool, no good. But even though they can be really fit, like my dad, he's really good at running and really fit, but when it came to swimming, he can't swim a lick. He's gassed out after a few laps, which doesn't make sense. His heart's in shape, but it's the muscular conditioning is completely different. So that proves there that having a strong heart in a particular discipline or having cardiovascular conditioning in a particular sport doesn't translate. And I see too many boxers, in my opinion, running, cycling, no good, in my opinion. Maybe it is, but the reason I'm emphasising this is because there's no good me talking about other things like, I don't know, power so much. As we've already explained, having a whole load of power is no good when you run out of gas. So we need to concentrate on cardiovascular conditioning within the sport of boxing. Yeah, if AJ tells me, oh, but don't worry, YB, I've learned how to run an extra 10 kilometers, that will not fill me with any more confidence at all, not even a bit. Now, hearing him, and this is the other thing actually on this note. So I was just talking about keeping his heart rate up. The other thing you'll notice, well, I've noticed with boxing, shadow boxing, you really have to be throwing a high volume of punches, man. It's so hard to, because your arm muscles are so small, it is hard to get your heart rate up. You just using your arms, and that's therefore AJ's bigger than me, so his heart rate will get up quicker than mine will. But still, you need to be throwing volume. I've noticed when I do my shadow boxing and foot movements, I have to be throwing 200 punches a round to really get it up to 180. You're looking at literally 200 punches a round you need to be doing. That's for me anyway. Otherwise, I'm not getting tired enough. And that's the problem with boxing. I've noticed there's not enough accountability within the sport. I've never seen heart rate monitor isn't really a massive thing. I don't personally use them, but you've got to understand. You've got to be able to appreciate what is actually working hard. Hitting the bag, just hitting the bag for as an example, doing 12 3-minute rounds on a bag. What's that? There's no accountability there. You need to know. You know what? I'm gonna hit this. I'm gonna hit a bag, 12 3-minute rounds, and maintain my heart rate above a particular level. Now, starting off at 180 is going to be difficult, but how you do it is, you say, you know what, I'm going to do 12 3-minute rounds, and for the first time I try it, I'm going to maintain my heart rate above 160. Or, another way of doing it, I'm going to go for 120 punches a round. And each time you do this, you do 12 3-minute rounds, you increase the punches. The first day you do it 100 punches, the next day 110, or next week or whatever. That's what you need to be doing. You need to be increasing the load progressively. And as I said, in boxing, I've noticed there's not enough accountability. There's really not. You don't. There's no proof that people are working hard. Now, don't get me wrong. I've noticed that when they're on the cycling, or when they're doing the running on the treadmill, they'll have the heart rate monitor on, and all the science people will be around. I've seen Dylan White on the bike, really using his legs or whatever, and they've got the oxygen thing on their mouth, or what's it called? The altitude mask on their face and whatnot. That's all good, but as I said, cycling, in my opinion, doesn't translate. A great example: look at Dylan White and the Joseph Parker fight. He's doing all this cycling and shit, but he's run out of gas in the 12th round. How can that be? You're meant to be fit in your sport. How can you be able to do 20 kilometers running or cycling, but you can't in your own sport? You're running out of gas. That's because you haven't conditioned your body within the sport. You need the same way people, as an example, when you see these dudes like AJ or Dylan White on the cycle and they're literally about to throw up and their hearts are pumping out of their head, you'll notice, show me a training session you've ever seen Dylan White or AJ that tired actually after a boxing session. You won't see it. You just won't. Because they're not working, or because it's harder, it's more technical. You've really got to understand what you're trying to achieve in boxing. Going through the motions isn't enough. Whereas on a bike or on a treadmill, it's a lot easier, it's a lot more linear to get your heart rate up. You know, because once you're on a bike, all you've got to do is spin your legs faster. Whereas in boxing, you've got to really appreciate, alright, I've got to really throw 200 punches this round to get it up. And I feel there's that link missing. Maybe I'm wrong, but the bottom line is, this is what I believe, and this is what I observed with AJ. We can see in this clip here that there's just not enough punches going. His feet aren't moving quick enough. In a fight, your feet will have to move a lot quicker than that, a lot more explosively, and that's why the difference between that's why fighters, I can never understand, why is it in sparring do I always get more tired? This is what it comes down to. When you're actually reacting to danger, everything moves as quick as you can, put it that way. Whereas when you're in a shadow boxing environment or a training environment, you're not as sharp, you haven't got that mental focus. Mental focus is draining. When you're literally looking at someone and anticipating feints and zoned in, but you have to put yourself into that forced environment. You have to force your body. Whilst that you haven't got that physical danger there, which naturally gives you them sharp reactions and sharp foot movement, you have to force your body. You have to say, you know what, I'm going to think about being really explosive with my foot movement. Think about the mechanics of it. When I'm stepping in, when I'm doing my foot drills, I'm going to really think about doing it as fast and as high form as possible. Make sure I'm staying low. Make sure my guard's high. You've got to have these mental checks within it. You've got to be able to get your bottom line is you've got to be able to get your heart rate up to 180 and maintain it there within a boxing environment. That's the advice. Now, I've gone somewhat technical in this, but the reason I have to do these videos like this is because maybe someone in AJ's team, or maybe AJ himself, will one day hear this and it'll make something click in his head. Not saying I've got all the answers, but I know for a fact, if I was in this, I can't tell, like I said yesterday, Could I sit here and say, oh, I can give AJ the mental edge that someone else can't? Absolutely not. I'm not a boxer. I don't profess to be, but I believe when it comes to conditioning within boxing, I would bet my I'd do it for free on principle. And if I didn't add value, if I worked with AJ and he didn't end up and he ran out of gas, well, I just don't believe it would happen. I bet my life on it. I bet my life if AJ said YB, I'm going to give it a shot. If that happened, I'd bet my life. Not possible. Not possible. There's no way that dude there would be running out of gas. In fact, people would be talking about, wow, this dude's got so much power, got so much more speed. But anyway, that's me gassing my own ego up maybe, but that's how I feel. These guys, on the treadmill, you'll see them running really quickly. On the bike, you'll see them pushing really hard. But why you never see, when they're doing their shadow boxing, when they're on the bag, you'll never see them gasping for air. But you got to realise, in a fight, you see AJ gasping for air, he can't hold his hands up. That's because in the training and in the actual gym, doing boxing, he hasn't learned how to replicate. The same way you get tired in a fight, that's because he's not replicating that in the gym. Doing it on the treadmill and on the bike is easier because it's a linear movement. All you got to do is spin your legs around in circles. It's easy to push. But in boxing, you've got to have someone who understands what they're talking about and understands how to apply, how to turn pushing in running into pushing in boxing, which essentially comes from a high punch output, a high power output, maintaining your form, keeping your hands high, keeping your legs bent, keeping a low centre of mass, and being explosive with everything, whilst maintaining a high number of reps. That's what it comes down to. And these guys here, too slow, and not enough output. His hands aren't moving. We can measure it here. You can do it yourselves in your own time. Look how many punches he throws. Look at the time and look at the just add the time up. In fact, I'll tell you what we'll do now. Let me have a quick count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 9. So I mean, there's half a minute there, and he's thrown 10 punches, 11 punches, 12. So in half a minute, he's thrown 12 punches, which converts to what? 25, 75. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. You've really got to. It's completely different in a fight, because you ask yourself, wait a minute, look how easy that looked. AJ just threw 75 punches around there. He only has to do 45, and this is what I'm trying to tell you. When I told you I have to do 200, I bet you thought I was lying, but this goes to show, look how easy AJ is, and that's maintaining a 75 punch output, where in a fight AJ only maintains 45. This is what I'm saying. It's too easy in boxing to be flowy in boxing training. It's too easy on the bag. Doing 60 punches on a heavy bag, it really ain't tiring. It's not an issue at all in a round. In a fight, it is. Because it's a completely different beast anyway. I've rambled there. I hope people took some value from this. It's more of a technical video rather than me gassing. And one thing I will say actually, not only is the high punch output, high form, all these elements have to go into one. Head movement, you've got to do much more head movement. Every combat, in fact, simple as this. AJ's 6'6", of course, but putting that to one side, I've seen him in the Klitschko fight move his head. In these training environments, a good way to get your heart rate up is by head movement, because as an example, when you bob and weave, you have to bend your knees, and the minute you bring your legs into a movement, that's how you get tired. Yeah? So in my opinion, in these sort of training settings, shadow boxing on the bag, after every combination, you should be looking for a slip. After you throw a 1-2, you want to look to slip, because they're outside punches, so you're most likely going to be slipping a 1-2. So 1-2, slip. Now when you're on the inside, as an example, the minute you start throwing hooks and uppercuts, then you can start weaving, because you're most likely to be on the inside. So after every combination, you should be looking to move your head. After every combination, you should be looking to pivot. After every combination, you should be looking to do some sort of maneuver, whether you're head movement, foot movement. That's always what you got to be thinking, because ultimately, once you got a combination off, you're never just going to, in a fight, you're never just going to be standing there, are you? You've always got to be looking to add something to it, even if it's just a simple catch. But I like to do things which have a higher intensity. Catching's good, but not really. Catching's not enough movement. After every combination, you should be looking to add some fast, explosive foot movement to get out of range, or some explosive head movement, and a pivot on the end. That's what I'm thinking. Well, that's what I believe anyway. And I hate to say it, but this is more of the same. I can't see from this particular video. I don't see anything changing here. I don't look at this and think, wow, AJ's making a real effort. Look how he's blowing in boxing. Look how he's now blowing doing boxing training. This is what AJ must be blowing. If you're not exhausted, if you're not seeing physical pressure, and when he's doing his boxing drills, that's why when it comes to the ring and you undergo physical pressure on your cardiovasculars, that's why you run out of gas. Because you haven't stressed it enough in training. And like I keep going around in circles, but it is difficult to do. But you've got to have someone who understands that within boxing. But that's what I think anyway. I'll be intrigued to see what you guys think.